So wonderful to be with you all again. So many friends here, such a long history between this congregation and the congregation I served just around the block. Last time I was here, we were waiting for Tovis to be called Reverend Tovis, and now she is. And since I was here last, you have also hired my close friend, Reverend Terry Eckelbarger. And yeah, is right. She's wonderful. And there's a joke Terry and I have known each other 25 years. And one of the funny things that we share is we show up in different places. And people will often run up to me and say, Reverend Terry, you changed my life. And I say, I'm so glad your life has changed. And I happen to be Reverend Penny. And this has happened to each of us so many times that it's just a running joke between us. So today, I'm Penny Nixon, not Terry Eckelbarger, but I am so glad that she is in your midst and you are in hers. So let's take a deep breath together. There's a lot going on, isn't there? So on Monday, my wife said to me, so how are you're preaching this week, how are you going to talk about what's going on in Israel and Gaza? Now, we've been together, we just celebrated our 31st anniversary, and yeah, and as I say, in gay years, that's a really long time. But for 27 of those years, I was in the ministry, in the pulpit. So that was a question that she knew to ask. But she said, I'm asking you because I don't know what to do with my class this week. I want to acknowledge what's going on. She teaches English to speakers of other languages at Chabot College. And in her class are Afghans, Chinese, Mexican, Ethiopians, all learning to read and write English. So I said, well, why don't you just ask them to do a little writing exercise, an anonymous one, about writing a letter to President Biden, now that they're here in the United States, about what they think and feel. I'm fascinated by what they would say because, as the French author Anais Nin says, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. You with me so far? We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And when I talk about seeing today, when I talk about sight, I'm not talking about the physical ability to see. I'm not exalting an ableist sense of sight. I'm talking about seeing with the eyes of the heart, about enlightenment, about spiritual insight. Siddhartha Gautama, as he made his journey to become the Buddha, he begins with what is known now as the four sights, right? Because he grew up in a palace. He was protected from the ills of the world. So the first sight is he went outside the walls of the palace. His first sight was an old man. His second sight was illness. His third sight was someone who had died. He had never seen any of these things, to the point where he had to ask his chariot driver, what is this? What does this mean? And his fourth sight is that he encountered a holy man who was seeking to understand truth. This encounter with suffering is what put Siddhartha on the path to becoming the Buddha. In Judaism, Moses, his enlightenment came when he saw, with the eyes of his heart, his people being enslaved, exploited, mistreated. And it took him a while because, remember, Moses was the son of privilege, a child of the palace. But then he became transformed by the suffering of his people, and he, like the Buddha, would go into a state of deep meditation and reflection in the desert, where then he encounters the burning bush, the holy ground, where the divine speaks to him and says, go speak truth to power and set your people free. And in the Christian tradition, Jesus was not a child of the palace, but rather a poor child, a refugee, a marginalized upbringing, one who was called illegitimate. And Jesus knew what it was to see people. In fact, there's this amazing story in the gospel about Jesus seeing a widow putting in just 2 coins in an offering. And he says to his disciples, she has put in all that she had. Anybody heard this story in here? She's put in all that she had. But right before that, he says, beware of the scribes. They walk around in their long robes, eloquent robes, and they say long prayers, but they devour widows' houses. Jesus was saying to his disciples, do you see her? Do you see the system? Yes, she gave all she had, or actually, she didn't give what she had. It was taken from her. He saw the systems, basically saying things are not as they seem sometimes. This was his path to enlightenment as well. So the one who became the Buddha, the one who would be the leader of the Jewish people, and the one who would begin a spiritual revolution, each of them saw with their eyes of their heart because they were proximate to the pain. Not only to the pain of individuals, but of the structural systems that were often designed to keep them that way. Is anybody with me so far? Oh, that's so convincing. Okay. Right. I'll just keep right on going. All right. Thank you. There we go. All right. Here we are. Here we're coming. All right. As Desmond says, poverty isn't a line. If you haven't read his book, it's just so brilliant. It's a tight knot of social maladies. It's at the center of everything that we in this room care about. It means that so many people across America, so many people in San Mateo County, live in an insecure and unsafe way in the richest nation in the history of the world. In one of the richest counties. Can we say it? In America, right? Do you know that here in California we have one of the highest functional poverty rates in the nation? And that's because when you do a functional poverty rate, you compare it to the cost of living and the high cost of housing here in San Mateo and across California. Without that increase in jobs and wages is at the heart of this problem. I love the UU tradition, the bedrock of what you are all about, especially your first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and your last principle, respect for the independent web of all people, of all existence, which we are a part. And you know, there are times that I think that humanity rises to our best selves. And we can see the capacity we have to care and to love for one another. The capacity to see the humanity in each other. We see that come out often when there are great disasters, natural disasters. I think of the fires in Maui. I mean, people just came forward in a way that is profound, sharing resources and time, putting their lives on the line. We see that disaster after disaster, people come forward in general, right? And you see what people can do when we come together to help one another. But then there are these slow drip disasters that happen over time that we don't even see, and that we don't use our capacity to come together to solve. And that's why I want to suggest today that we need the spiritual toolkit of binoculars and lenses and mirrors. Binoculars to see those things that are far away. You know, when you see something, you're out on a hike and you see something, you think, what is that? And then you get your binoculars and you begin to get into focus and you're like, oh, that's what that is. It's this great story from my friend. Her aunt and uncle were quite the characters, and they were both aging and failing in sight, but still couldn't give up driving. And so Uncle George would drive, but Aunt Mildred would sit in the passenger seat with binoculars to make sure he was still on the road where he needed to be. Now, I'm not sure that's what binoculars were meant for. However, it brought things into focus. And we need lenses. We all have lenses. We see the world as we are. The lenses of our social class, our economic class, our racial class, the way we've been brought up. And we also need mirrors to see our own reflection, which sometimes is the hardest look at all. How many people in here love to look in the mirror? How many people in here love to take selfies? Come on. Oh, there you go. Looking in the mirror is not something I like to do. Because the self-judgment, I'm sure I'm the only one in the room, the self-judgment, what I see, the blemishes, the wrinkles, just the gravity, let's call it, that happens as one ages. But I don't mean look in the mirror in a self-incriminating way. I mean look in the mirror with a long, loving look. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who needs transformation most of all? It's so easy, friends, and I know among friends here, it's so easy to say, what is the city doing? What is the county doing? What is the government doing about homelessness, about the unhoused? But when we look in the mirror, maybe we can lovingly ask, how can I be part of creating a society where everyone has a safe, secure, and affordable place to live? How can I be part of creating that society? And the answers are not easy, but there are solutions, and we can all play a role. You know, I worry. I don't know about you, but I've been so heavy with what's going on in Israel and Gaza. And also so heavy about the deepening or widening polarization that's even happening around this human suffering. Is anybody with me? Yes. And I read this thing from this rabbi this week who said, if the deaths of innocents on one side are a tragedy, but the deaths of innocents on the other bring a hint of vengeful satisfaction, something in us is broken. If acknowledging the humanity of the other undermines the strength of your political argument, something in us is broken. The most dehumanizing part of conflict beyond the direct violence is how we find ourselves becoming that which we condemn, unable to make space for the pain and humanity of others. And I have seen this. I have seen this in discussions. I have seen this in not even being able to talk to some of my colleagues about what is going on because of the immediate sides people take. If the deaths of innocents on one side but not on the other are not a tragedy, something in us is broken, dear friends. And it's not just about Israel and Gaza, it's here as well. If it doesn't pain us that people live in poverty, that people are housing insecure, that people experience relentless racial discrimination, then something in us is broken. And it's coming together like this to talk at a depth of honesty is where the healing takes place, where our humanity is revived. And so as we think about our own context, I invite us to side. I mean, many of you know I work in affordable housing. I just want to say it like this, straight up. Affordable housing is not political. It's a human issue. Full stop. Everyone deserves a safe and secure place to live. So how do we do this? Side with the man in the open suitcase at the BART station that I saw laying in an open suitcase last week. Side with the mother and the 2 children living in their Corolla. Side with the people who work 2 full-time jobs and still can't pay their rent. Side with the mother in the grocery line as you see her put some things back because she can't afford to buy that food and pay the rent that has increased. Side with those who woke up with an eviction notice on their door this morning. Side with those who have no generational wealth. Side with people. Let us use our binoculars, our lenses, our mirrors to truly see them. Let us be deeply committed to the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that interdependent web of which we all are a part. And with love and kindness, may we see things as they are. May we see ourselves as we are, and together, may we find another way and heal that which has been broken. Amen.
Amen.